pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Wave, I'm not long but an after the door. Support the ship pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Support pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Wave, I'm not long but an after the door. Support the ship pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Support pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Wave, I'm not long but an after the door. Support the ship pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Support pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Wave, I'm not long but an after the door. Support the ship pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone. Support pressure weapon 1340 East of Zone.
Okay, let's try that again. Hey, Chris. Can't hear you yet. You need to join via audio. Hey, Chris.
Yes, I'm out of this support pressure with a gun 672 answer.
Chris
Copy,
is
support of black male, blue sweatpants, blue shirt,
in
armed,
a silent march
this support pressure with a gun 6729
with the folks from... I will get you that information in a second.
Not too far, District 4, question 156, Islamic meaning. Movement black female, Smith, throat, ponytail, pink dress. Yes, not verified. 25, District 4, question 156, Islamic meaning.
Chris is in a silent march with Teamsters Local 502 CASA, gasping for breath, justice, and change. They are marching from 855 North Broad Street to 440 North Broad Street, silently in protest of injustice and racism. They will be taking a knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in solidarity.
James, I stepped away from the protest just for a minute, just to inform everybody. This is a silent protest. That's why I'm That's why I'm not commenting as it's going on. But just want to fill everybody in. This is Teamsters Local 502. They are school administrators, and they are here to peacefully demonstrate for Black Lives Matter, for police accountability, and obviously for significant systemic change. And there's a huge showing of support and solidarity. I've seen some people here from other unions, and hold on, I gotta turn the camera around. So we're about 2 full blocks deep of protesters, and people from all different walks of life, different age groups. There's children out here, and everyone is just silently marching. I'm going to go back and join the protest, or the march, I should say. So I'm going to shut up now, but that's what's going on down here on Broad Street.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, got a silent march going there. Obviously not silent for the folks that are supporting the march and honking as they drive past.
Hi, James. I'm on.
Hey, Gil.
Do you need help specifically monitoring something, or just the general backup?
Just general backup. I might head out to a couple of protests that I read about, and try and work remote, but I don't know yet. So I wanted to give an introduction again. My intro, I don't think had any audio, so I'll do it again. We're doing it live, folks. My name is James Jackson. I'm an independent producer here in Philadelphia. I live and work in Philly.
So I'm going to pop off stream for a minute here. I'm going to get some more pictures. I'll be back on in a little while.
Great, thanks. I live and work here in Philadelphia, and I use he, him pronouns. I forget what else I introduced originally, but I wanted to bring in this digital rally for the arts that we'll be doing on the 8th and 9th. That is an online rally, and we will be supporting funding for the arts and defunding the PPD. The PPD is overfunded in my and a lot of other people's opinion, and we hope to remove the extraneous funding from the PPD and redirect it towards human services and health services. Gil, if you want to introduce yourself just so you can, when you pop on, people know who you are. Gil? I guess he stepped away from his computer.
No, I'm here. I just forgot how to unmute myself for a minute. It's been a long 48 hours.
Yeah.
It's been a long few hundred years and a long 48 hours personally. This is Gil Johnson, they, he pronouns. I'm here mostly operating in a tech support capacity today. Yeah, that's enough of me.
Okay. So, just to provide some info, a lot of the information I'll be giving out today is related to the PPD and the overfunding of the PPD. I'm going to try and keep looking for digital coverage, live coverage of the current protest marches. There's various protest marches going on throughout the city. We have protest marches and protest march starts scheduled for 2:30 p.m., 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Yeah, there's quite a lot going on today. It is heartening to see. There is the 2 p.m. Take a Knee protest at PMA, the 3 p.m. Workers of the World peaceful protest at Love Park, the 3:30 p.m. Public School Administrators Silent March at Commonwealth Association of School Administrators offices, and the 8 p.m. curfew. So we have a curfew again, folks. As I've expressed many times on these live streams, I don't think there is a value to having a curfew here in Philadelphia, other than the ability to lower the necessary threshold for police intervention, and that's basically what a curfew is for. And as usual, it's enforced against black and brown people much more than anybody else. Hey Chris, I don't know if you can hear me, but you have your finger over the camera, my friend. I'll try and text message him so he knows.
Instead by 25th District, 5th and Allegheny, resume my found it. 5th and Allegheny, 25th District, I found it.
So that is the silent march that we're seeing coverage of right now. And the silent march, like all the protest marches today, is in support of ending police over. I'm losing words. So it's been a long couple of days. The folks here in Philadelphia haven't been getting much sleep. We've been hearing loud booms from around the city, and nobody's actually confirmed what those booms are, no matter who you ask.
29 Essington, person with a gun unfounded. 6729 Essington and the 12th person with a gun is unfounded.
Hey Gil, when you get a sec, would you check, would you mute yourself and check one of the feeds and see if you have my audio?
Stand by.
So yeah, police injustice is a big problem here in Philadelphia. It's a problem everywhere. Over-policing, police brutality, and the problem is mostly rooted in the commercial nature of policing.
Your audio is good.
Okay, great, thanks. We have, I was thinking of next steps yesterday, and I had this conversation with you, Gil, but I was thinking about next steps. What are we asking for? What needs to happen here? Immediate steps, obviously, we need to suspend, fire, and sorry, I'm going to pin myself on the second screen here. Suspend, fire, and investigate all the officers that have committed acts of police brutality during the last few days. Then we need to go back and wrap up all the cases of police brutality that have been going on for many years, that haven't been properly investigated or haven't been investigated well enough. We also need to root out racism, sexism, and othering in the Philadelphia police. The Philadelphia police tend to slow roll cases that they don't feel like following up on. So, as an example, if a pedestrian gets run over, but the Philadelphia Police Department tends to agree with the driver of the vehicle, or if they know the driver of the vehicle or have a personal relationship with the driver of the vehicle, they fail to prosecute, they fail to investigate, and in that failure, they commit acts of police brutality. The mayor has tacitly condoned these acts, and I believe that at this point he needs to strongly apologize for the things he's said in support of the police. I believe he needs to make sure there's a sea change in the police force by encouraging the police union to get rid of its current president, Mr. McNesby. If I had my way, McNesby would be run out of the city on a rail, but just leave it at that. But yeah, these issues have not been corrected. These issues have not gone away. And while the last 2 days of protesting have been peaceful and encouraging, we can't let these small concessions by the leadership of Philadelphia drive us to stop asking for actual change. The changes in dealing with protests are not actual change. As I've said before, it seems like we've gone back to a system of I don't know, Gil. Maybe I am on helium. I actually don't know what's up with my sound. So, as I said, we seem to have gone back to a system of policing protests that we had in place before that kept protests from becoming violent. We need to actually use this moment to continue to press for change. Small, insignificant changes like removing the Rizzo statue from City Hall and removing the Rizzo mural from South Philadelphia are not going to actually do anything. We need to defund the police. The police need no additional resources. They need to actually sell some of the resources that they have now. As has been seen by yesterday's policing of protests, it's a lot simpler to keep protests peaceful by not engaging protesters with military-grade hardware, not engaging them with body armor, not putting the police in the mindset of needing to engage as a hostile force. We have some very bad examples from Washington, D.C. the last couple of days. And those examples exemplify the problem of not having a sea change in policing. If we just go back to what we had, these military style confrontations with peaceful protesters will continue. You can fire all the police officers you want, and you bring in new police officers, and they will automatically go towards the same type of interaction if they are not retrained, and if they're provided with that type of equipment.
Hey,
you good,
James?
Chris? Yeah.
Yeah. Just I'm gonna take a quick break from live broadcasting. I think they're about to give some speeches here. I just want to check in with the viewers and listeners. It's really difficult to spend that much time on one knee. My leg is like falling asleep, and I don't know. That says something to me. I'll check back in with you guys in a little bit.
Okay, thanks. Awesome. So that was live coverage of that protest. I haven't seen any helicopter coverage of the protests as of yet, and I do have the scanner up, the Philadelphia police scanner up, but it seems that the scanner operators have chosen to cover less of the bandwidth than they usually cover. So I will continue to look for additional resources here. There's an ongoing moment of silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds at the memorial for George Floyd.
line is 78130 Roosevelt, party one person would have gone at the right aid. I have two customers fighting inside. One male is armed, white male tall, bald, heavy set, gray shirt, gray pants. 78130 Roosevelt, party one person would have gone at the right aid. Two customers are fighting. One male is armed, a white male tall, bald, heavy set, gray shirt, gray pants. Let's further. First one's on 8130 East Roosevelt Boulevard at the right. He got two customers fighting. White male tall, bald, heavy set, gray shirt, gray pants, box and armored gun. 7 District, first one gun, 8130 Roosevelt at the right aid.
We're going to hear from Mike Roth, one of our dedicated, committed principals. And we're also going to hopefully hear from our superintendent if he has arrived yet. So please hear Jerry Jordan as he comes. Good afternoon. The death of George Floyd and the way in which he died is something that made me think about the amount of institutional racism that exists in this country. And it's been existing for longer than 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The work that we do in this school district, regardless of what your job is, every day to educate children, you do a great job, but you are not funded properly. When I think back just a few years ago, when every assistant principal, every secretary, every counselor, every nurse, and so many other positions were eliminated. And schools were expected to open and function in that fashion. The knee of institutional racism was on the necks of all of us in Philadelphia. Yeah. When there was money in Harrisburg that we fought to get Governor Corbett to send to Philadelphia, it was targeted for Philadelphia. And his response was, I'm not sending it until there are concessions from the PMT. But you know what happened? At the Bryant Elementary School, a little girl, LaPortia Massey, had asthma, and there was no nurse present that day. And so the needs of the system, of the institutional racism, were on her and the people at Bryant, and she died. Governor Corbett released that money the following day. When I think about the budget season that this district is going through now, when a choice has to be made about whether or not you'll have a music teacher or an art teacher, when you should have both, when you should have exactly what the school districts just a few miles away from here have, that should not be a choice. When I look at the fact that we have about 7 librarians in the city of Philadelphia, the knee of institutional racism is on us here in Philadelphia. When I look at the way that the system is designed, it's a school to prison pipeline, because we're denying our children what they need. And people know exactly what they're doing when they withhold the money from our children. And they do that across this country in districts that have predominantly Black and brown children. It is time for all of us to make sure that the memory of George Floyd lives on, and it lives on because we have to fight to make sure that we eliminate this racism that we are living with in this country. The healthcare system that we have does not go far enough in order to help our children, their families. The amount of unemployment, it goes on, and it is a vicious cycle, and it will only be broken when we break it. We have to break it. We cannot allow this to continue, because if it continues, George Floyd's death will be in vain. And we don't want his living to be in vain. We have work to do. We will get it done, and we will do it in memory of him, because we have to be the ones to eliminate the institutional racism in this country. Thank you.
Yeah.
One more time for Jerry Jordan, President of Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. We'll now hear from Dr. Penny Nixon, Chief Academic Officer for Universal Schools. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. We are the ones that our children have been waiting for. We are educators. We are educators. When we go inside those classrooms, we must do everything that we can to eradicate racism, and it starts with educating our children. Who they are. Who they are. We can do this. We are educators. We are educators. We can do this. The silent marches are okay. Kneeling for almost 9 minutes, that's okay. But if we don't act when we get in front of our children, it doesn't matter. We must act. Let's help our children. Yes, Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. We must help our children. It doesn't matter what we look like. We are educators. We are in the same fraternity. We're in the same surroundings. We must fight so that our children have a fighting chance. If no one else can do it, we can.
Supervisor and inspector officers under their command and take action if needed. 335, 20 times 411.
So when we leave this place, we must think about what actions are we going to take to make sure that the children that we serve in this city, and it doesn't matter if it's public, private, parochial, they are all our children. The entire city of Philadelphia, we must act. So when we leave here today, think about, what am I going to do to eradicate racism when I see my children, our children? We must act. We must act. And we can do this. We are educators.
we have our, I'm not sure where, Michael Ross. Okay. You want to hear from Michael Ross is our fine principal from Alany Elementary, and we definitely want to hear. Sometimes it's fine when we hear from each other, but when you hear from people who don't look like you, who stand in solidarity to you, then we, as a collective body, we can go out and give our message to make certain that people know that white people care about Black lives too.
35th District, personal weapon, 1001 Oak Lane. It's a black male in a black tank top, red, black shorts, armed with a weight. He's bashing out windows. Also,
I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I gave Robin and Dina a call because I thought there'd be no better group of people to march with here in Philadelphia than educators. A group of people who are already fighting against systemic racism in our country. My heart and my prayers go out to the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all of the people of color who have suffered at the hands of racism over the last hundreds of years in this country. To my colleagues of color and students of color that I serve, while as a white person, I cannot fully understand your pain, I want to say that many of your white teachers and school leaders are also angry and deeply saddened because of the racism that is still so deeply rooted in this country. Racism is this nation's original sin. For white folks who, whether we can admit it or not, have benefited for hundreds of years from these racist structures that are still benefiting us today. And I'm speaking to white people, it is not good enough for us to say that I am personally not a racist. If we really care and we really want to make a difference, we need to stand up and speak up against racist systems that still exist in our policing, our housing, our education, and our prison systems. If we have said what happened to George Floyd is wrong, but we are more frustrated by the response that has occurred as a result, then we need to search our souls, because we are still then a part of the problem. Woo! Yeah. I want to thank Dr. Cooper for her leadership and all of my brothers and sisters out here today, and brothers and sisters of color who have invited us to march with you. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
Woo!
So at this time, we'd like to first thank Mike Raw, principal of Alany Elementary. At this time, we're going to bring forth one of our state representatives. I call him the newbie freshman, but he is on fire, working for North Philly sections part of the city. So please hear State Representative, if you want things done in Harrisburg, please make certain that you get in contact with this man if he is your state representative. Again, it's going to take all of us to really
in fact, the protests
institutionalized racist system.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives. Black lives.
So I don't want to cut my coverage of the march that Chris is at to cover it, but Governor Tom Wolf is currently giving a live speech to address protests. We'll cover it on the replay when we get the chance.
Woo! Let's be very clear about what's going on in this country. Go. Let's be very clear about what's happening in this movement. Let's be very clear about what you're a part of right now. We ain't going backwards. Yes. We ain't going backwards. There's a lot of folks, a lot of reporters, a lot of Facebook comments saying, Malcolm, when we gonna get some calm? Well, we ain't getting no calm until we get some peace. Yeah. Woo! And we can't have peace. We can't have real, lasting peace until every kid in every school has every chance to follow their dreams. That's peace. Yeah. Woo! We're not going to have peace until we deal with every red line district, every red line community that still exists in this country. Until then, you ain't going to get no peace. Yeah! Speak it. And so I want you to know what you're up against. There's a lot of people who are saying they want you to go home. They want you to stop marching. They want you to shut up. They want to go back to the same normal that got us here. But we ain't going back to normal. We ain't going back to normal. We can't accept another budget that says it's okay if we don't educate the black kids. We can't accept another budget that says it's okay if we don't pay our essential workers. We can't go back and have another budget that doesn't do something about police accountability. And that's what the hell we need. Woo! Now, smashing up here, saw a little girl somewhere over there holding a sign. A little baby. A baby who shouldn't have to be marching on a Thursday to get people to believe that her life and her future matters. We're not doing this again. The next generation shouldn't have to deal with this again. My grandmother called me and said, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought we fixed that already. I'm not having that conversation with my kids. Woo! So this is the moment. This is the moment right now. We got the statue of Rizzo down, but we want more than a statue. We got a lot of people who say they give a damn, but we want more than your word. We want change, and you ain't gonna get no peace until we get it. Woo! You gotta teach, brother.
I told you guys he was on fire.
You fire,
I told you he was on fire. So before we hear from our superintendent of schools, right here, we definitely want to acknowledge Eric Marr Sr., who is the director of Union Relations and Community Engagement out of City Hall. And we definitely appreciate the support today. Prior to our superintendent coming, we're going to have some words from Numa St. Louis, who is the representative out of Congressman Dwight Evans' office. Please hear him as he comes.
Woo! Thank you. No justice?
No peace.
No justice?
No peace.
No justice?
No peace.
No justice?
No peace.
My name is Numa St. Louis, and I am the district representative and policy advisor for U.S. Congressman Dwight Evans, who couldn't be here today. But it was very important for me to be here today with you to show solidarity. We were all moved by that gruesome video of George Floyd dying, grasping for air. Irrespective of your race, if you're a human being, if you have a soul, if you have a conscience, you have to be moved by that. I am really moved to see people here today. I want to thank the Teamsters for convening us today to show solidarity. Give it up for the Teamsters.
Thank you. Solidarity.
We're very clear-eyed that there's no bill that will be a silver bullet to change everything. It's going to require a cross-section of all of us to change this rotten system. But it does require leadership. It does require laws. And at the federal level, we are supporting 4 pieces of legislation that we think will put a dent or alleviate some of the problems we're confronting. I'll go through them very briefly. The first one is a bill introduced from Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman out of Boston, which will hold police accountable. Do away with the immunity that they have. The other one is named after Eric Gardner out of New York, a bill introduced by Hakeem Jeffries, Congressman out of Brooklyn. We also have to be very, very careful with our police force being increasingly militarized. We want to put a stop to that. We don't want to see tanks walking down Broad Street. Woo! We don't want to see grenades in our police department. We're very vigilant. I won't be too long, but I just want to say that I am deeply, deeply moved to be here, to see a cross-section of race, of gender, of age to be here to show solidarity. Not because Black Lives Matter, but because of the human conscience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And please give our regards to Congressman Evans. At this time, again, people, I definitely am so appreciative that you are out and you're out in full force. Again, this takes everyone. It's going to take all of us to dismantle institutionalized racism. So we now have our superintendent of Philadelphia School District, Dr. William Height. Please hear him as he comes.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks to the Teamsters and CASA for pulling this together. Sorry about that. And I want to thank all of the individuals who are here. Representative Kenyatta, I know you were still here. Thank you so much for what you do in Harrisburg to actually help us. To Mr. St. Louis, thank you as well. And Congressman Evans, thank you for being here. Representative from Councilmember Brooks' office, thank you for being here. She is doing tremendous work. We appreciate that you are here. Jerry, thank you. And thank you for the representation, PFT, being here as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 2020. This is the year. Okay, got it. I got it. This is the year 2020. This is the year 2020. And the fact that we have to come together like this to actually stand out against racial injustice in the year 2020. I was born in the 1960s in the segregated South, in a segregated city, attended segregated schools. And now to think that we are once again having this conversation because we all got to witness in person a Black man like myself. He stomped out because of the color of his skin. Here's what I encourage everyone to do. Continue, stand up against racism. Anytime we see it in our schools, individuals talking about our young people, individuals talking about our city, continue to stand up against it. Let's also continue to stand up against institutionalized racism. Institutionalized racism is when the school district of Philadelphia doesn't get the funding it needs to adequately educate our young people. So I am humbled to be here with all of you. And I thank you for coming out here, making a stand against a justice system that treats one set of the population differently simply because of the color of their skin. We can't stand for that anymore. And as indicated earlier, no justice, no peace.
Thank you. Woo!
So we are nearing the very, very end. Again, we wanted to make certain that everyone understood the importance of coming strong to denounce racism, addressing the elephant in the room, understanding that Black Lives Matter, understanding that we as educators, that we don't walk into communities, get a paycheck, walk back to our suburban or not even be a resident of Philadelphia. We care, and we want our children, we want our families, we want them to see that we care. We want to be able to talk to them, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us, because one thing we do know, if you are an African American child, you are keenly aware at a very young age of the injustices that surround you. So we want them to see you, their teachers, their school partners, their principals, their superintendents. This is going to take everyone. We need fair funding. We want to make certain that our children's voices are heard. And so I really want to make certain that as a labor union, we have the collective power to make our voices heard. We understand that there is a collective pain, frustration, confusion, rage, disconnect, fear, uncertainty, and resiliency taking place in some cases at the same time. The need for us to lead and continue being professional in the midst of so much pain. We understand that it's a daunting task. So Teamsters Local 502, CASA, our stance is that we are a progressive union and we stand against anything that allows for any class of people to be discriminated against or for the continuation of any kind of racist actions directly and or indirectly. We will promote anti-racist policies, culturally responsive curriculums, peaceful protests, push for the development of a diversity and equity office, and engage in intellectual discourse and have all of the courageous conversations to confront racism. I asked a group of educators before the march, give me a few things that we can commit to, and this is what they said. We must provide professional development to prepare teachers and leaders to have authentic and courageous conversations with teachers and staff on a regular basis. We must stop apologizing and just listen. Don't shut our children out. Don't shut the Black part of your colleagues out. We have to stop apologizing and listen. Once we open our ears, we may hear some uncomfortable things, but once we open our ears and recognize this is a human rights problem, then and only then can we impact change in a positive direction. Thank you. We need a racial bias screening for new hires. Yes! Yes! We need, and I want to be absolutely fair. I know the district is working to make certain that they are hiring African American males who, can be around so people can see. Sometimes in the city of Philadelphia, you go all the way to 6th grade and not find a male educator. So they are committed to growing some African American teachers, particularly males, to come into the city to help us with some of the issues regarding lack of an African American male presence. Woo! Next, we have to, as educators, honor student voice, recognize recognizing that they know, see, feel, and have an awareness with this systemic oppression. And we need to just honor their voice. Last but not least, we said this throughout.
Hey, question line in the 24th district. You have Jasper and Clearfield.
We have culturally
Suburban progress at the Willard School.
Material,
3 to 4 males.
And that we understand.
Gaining entry through the side basement windows, taking items. Speeding on the 24th Jasper and Clearfield. We have a burglary in progress at the Willard School. 3 to 4 males breaking in through the side basement window, taking items. Nothing further.
Wonderful to come out with 2 days notice.
Person on 24th district report of a burglary in progress. Jasper and Clearfield at the Willard School on the Jasper Street side. 3 to 4 males, no flares, taking items through the basement window. 24th district report of a burglary in progress. Jasper and Clearfield, the Willard School on the Jasper Street side. 3 to 4 males, no flares, to the side basement window, taking items.
That you care about the children that we teach. We are acknowledging that we don't have all of the answers, but we're going to work together so we never see another African-American person lying in the street, being recorded, watching them take their last breath. It took almost 9 full
Carson Live, this is your Window Radio MDC transmission to Area 561 Pierce Orange Street. The Behavioral Health Center, female reference arrest, 25th District on Radio MDC transmissions, 561 Pierce Orange Street.
So when his last breath gave up, that was why we had the silent march, because we are
the Behavioral Health Center
struggling
making threats
to breathe, watching such an atrocity in 2020. We want to make certain that we go back, have the conversations with our children. The school district has resources to help our children with the turmoil that they're feeling. So we need to make sure that we are keeping our children safe, but we're also giving them an outlet to express themselves, because we do want to hear them. So, as they say in church, if all hearts are clear, I just want to acknowledge and thank folks who have been involved with this march. Again, we're talking 2 days' work. I would like to thank the Philadelphia police, always our school district police. I don't know where Kevin Bethel went, but okay, there he is. Can you wave? Our school police commissioner for the school district. Our elected official, state representative, he was driving down trying to get here, so I definitely appreciate it. All the elected officials, all of the teachers, PFT, with Jerry Jordan and I, we are often on the opposite sides of the fence with his union and our union, but guess what? When it comes to something like racism, we are all
the 25th
in this
Bergen Progress
together.
on 43 East Rockland Unfounded.
For our political action committee, if you're here, just give a shout out. Political action, fabulous job. For all of those administrators from outside of the city, we need your voice as well. We need the articles in the newspaper. We need to confront the racist system. We need for people to know each and every single day we are going to confront things that we see wrong, because we go back to schools and our children will confront us for not having a voice and not standing up. We would like to thank everyone for coming out, all the citizens who just joined us, every single person that showed up at 855 Broad Street for this walk in a pandemic. I truly, as the president of Teamsters Local 502, CASA, I sincerely thank you. We are going to make certain that, we do the city proud by making certain that we go back to the north side. We're going to cross the street. We have an escort, and we are going to go back as peacefully as we came. This was beautiful. And again, we intend, Dr. Martin Luther King said, the time is right to always do what's right. We did the right thing today. I would like to thank you all sincerely. And I'd like to also thank the International Teamsters of Brotherhood for their fabulous direction in putting this together. Thank you.
Running in the 24th, Jasper and Clearfield on the Berlin Products Compound in Jasper and Clearfield.
There are many things said during that rally that I don't know that I can agree with all of them. Education is one of the most important things for the safety and security of our democracy. I just wanted to show everyone real quick a photo here that was sent to me, and if I can pull up the description, this is by a photographer named Michael Pearson. His comment on it is that this was yesterday during the severe thunderstorms we had here in Philadelphia. What you see in sky and in the trees are literally filaments of water raining sideways at over 60 miles per hour. Nobody budged. The temperature dropped from 86 degrees Fahrenheit to 68 degrees Fahrenheit in 25 minutes, but just as soon as afterwards, the sun came back out. This photo is at 15th and JFK. There's a hope that we'll be able to do a similar thing with these protests. That we'll be able to instantly recover and we'll be able to go back to the sunny day. We'll still have COVID, we'll still have problems, but we won't have military, police, and grenades and machine guns, at least in the hands of police. I don't think that that's a realistic hope, unless we defund the PPD. We need to start with getting rid of the excess funding that the PPD has. We need to continue with funding arts and humanities. I want to touch on some of the things that the mayor's proposed budget does. Just take me a second to find it here. I have so many things to cover, sometimes I get a little lost in all the information that I have at my fingertips. One thing I wanted to cover for you is there is a new website called phillyprotest.com.
Carson, minus 24th is reported with someone breaking in 3024 Grants Back. Male.
There is a planned protest today at 3 p.m. It is now 4:42, but 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Love Park. Stop the police war on the people. Tomorrow there's a planned peaceful protest in Phoenixville at 2 p.m. On Friday there's a planned protest at 2 p.m. at the Roundhouse, that is the PPD's HQ. And then on June 6th, that's Saturday, is Justice for Floyd, March Against Racist and Police Brutality and Oppression of protests. That's from noon to 2.
Somebody 22nd District, report a person with a gun, 1911 Monument. You got a male, no flash, arm.
There's lots of more. There's a lot of protests being submitted to this site as we go along. So I'm sure that more will be published. There's a protest. There's a petition on Change.org to have Captain William Fisher of the Philadelphia Police Department's 26th Precinct fired, or at least removed from the captaincy of the 26th Precinct. I believe that's pretty important. We should definitely sign that petition. It's currently up to 19,300 signatures. It's a good portion of the city. That's definitely the... If Mayor Kenny or anybody in the administration happens to watch, that's definitely enough to sway an election, particularly for a council person. So if you want to guarantee your re-election, you might want to start supporting that effort now. I'm going to read the first-hand account of Locust Thorns. This was a first-hand account of the incident on 676, the incident of police brutality on 676. Today, there was a massive peaceful protest in Philadelphia. It was exactly what all the pearl-clutching liberals could have asked for. Even the chants were mostly PG-13. We got onto a highway, as often happens with protests. We were occupying the highway. Drivers honked in support. We held it for about 10 minutes. We were moving forward, but fell back when we saw a line of riot police. As we retreated, some of them began to sneak through the traffic. People didn't even notice them until they started shooting. I was shot in the abdomen while standing with my hands up. I would guess it was pepper ball because there was no muzzle flash or bang. Then they began gleefully unloading on the crowd. No warning, no verbal commands, nothing. They literally got our attention by shooting us. Police at the other end of the march began unloading the gas on the crowd. They have us completely boxed in. The only escape is a steep hill with a tall fence. Everyone panicked and made for that fence. People were clustered there. It was almost a human crush. As the crowd got more dense, the police began to really lay on the cruelty. They began unloading gas canister after gas canister on everyone, people who could clearly not escape. We were concerned, completely trapped, and they were unleashing their arsenal on us. This wasn't about dispersing us. This was about making people suffer. The cops who were sneaking through the cars came up on the bottom of the hill now, where masses of young people were screaming, crying, and struggling to get away. Slowly, methodically, they began to unload mace and spray more less lethal rounds into the mass of human bodies, already drowning in a cloud of CS gas. More cops arrived and began grabbing and arresting the stragglers. They were lined up and forced to soak in the gas cloud with not even a face mask while handcuffed and immobile. This is torture. Canister after canister landed at my feet. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. Neither could anyone around me. The only sound was screams, groans, crying, hacking, and coughing. There's still a respiratory pandemic. This is punctuated by the continuous pops of booms of even more canisters being detonated. I made it over the fence with what strength I had, unable to breathe, and finally made it to the clear air, as did the lucky ones around me who got away. Directly above the crowd that was recovering from this attack was a helicopter doing several extremely low flybys, blasting us with an LRAD. So many brave and heroic people stayed at the fence to help others climb over, even as the gas rained down on them too. So many people were out with water to help wash the irritants from people's eyes. When you see this, ask yourself, who to trust with your life, the helpers or the attackers? This is a peaceful protest, overwhelmingly. But if this is how they treat peaceful protesters, what options are we left with? If you decry rioting because it's violent, then why should only one side be committed to the violence? The same side that's wielded power and used it for one-sided racist violence for centuries. They don't respect peace. You will not appeal to the goodness of their hearts. Today, it was clear that their only intention was to hurt people as much as possible. The police today demonstrated their capacity for gleefully inflicting sadistic cruelty on other people. Do not believe the BS coming from the mayor or police commissioner. There was zero warning before this attack. It is right to rebel. That's the first-hand account of Locust Thorns. I'm encouraging everyone who was at that protest during that action to create their own first-hand account and submit it to the PPD's internal affairs, and also submit it to their city council members. And we're back with Chris. You wanted to say something?
I don't. I just wanted to check in with everybody, and I guess what I'll say, that was a really really powerful moment for me. I felt like I was watching history happen. I don't want to comment any deeper about any of the issues and stuff, because I feel like the speakers who presented their ideas,
there's coming to robbery in progress, strong arm, take a bit, unknown amount of cash.
They really captured the spirit of the moment, and
blackmail,
the biggest thing for me was,
there's no
as a
closing
union
description.
member,
This
this
thing running
was
towards the
one
corner
of the
store,
first
caster and banner.
major
That's
actions
proceeding in the second,
of union
60-50 free
solidarity
caster
with
for
the
robbery
Black
in
Lives
progress,
Matter
strong
movement
arm, blackmail,
in Philadelphia, and
then
it felt
no
good for
closing
me to
description.
see
So if you want to speak on the scene,
unions start to take some action and take a stand on this. My union at the international level just recently released a statement. The AFL-CIO just recently released a statement, both saying explicitly in no uncertain terms, Black Lives Matter. And that's the first time I've ever heard that from either of those organizations, and that means a lot to me. But I don't want to take away from anything else that was said by the speakers. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. My battery's getting a little bit low. I'm going to walk back to the Teamsters Hall and talk with their leadership a little bit about things that we can do going forward to work together. But yeah, I just wanted to check in, and yeah, it was a powerful moment. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. I think I'm gonna try and find see if there's any other demonstrations going on. James, if you're aware of anything going on, if you could just send me the location in the chat, or not in the chat, in Messenger. But I'm having trouble hearing you out here on the street. But I'm gonna sign off for now, guys.
All right, thanks, Chris. Interestingly, from Buenos Aires, the embassy at in Buenos Aires, I'm still getting updates from Argentina, because my wife and I were traveling there before we not long ago. Location: U.S. Embassy. Event: a demonstration in support of ongoing protests in the United States, as planned for this evening, June 4th. The demonstration will occur in the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy and will begin around 8 p.m. The duration is unknown. That's not the only international protest to what's happening in the U.S. right now. And I, for one, would like to thank all of our international brothers and sisters for raising their voices in support of an end to police violence. We need to end police violence permanently. As one of the speakers said during the protest that we were hearing, I talked to my grandma. She said, "I'm sorry. I thought we had this handled." I don't want to be having this conversation with my grandkids. I don't want my grandchild to be sitting in front of a camera one day and explaining how important it is to end police violence. I don't want my children to have to live with police violence. I'll read you another first-hand account. This one's an anonymous protester. I was out there from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. and the only violence I saw from the protesters wasn't even us. A drunk white dude in his Indigo bike thought it would be cute to throw a water bottle at the police, and we all drove him off. We marched from City Hall to Hunting Park, a 4.5-mile walk, and it wasn't until the police decided they were tired of us that they zeroed in. My friend got shoved to the ground and kicked in the head and body because he used his body as a shield because they were shoving women to the floor as they attempted to march forward. We had our hands up. We were there getting thank yous from the crowd of neighbors coming out to support us. Just so a helicopter could zero in on us, we ran away from the batons as they pulled out on us. So a cop SUV could hop on the sidewalk and slam on the gas, nearly hitting me as I stopped to catch my breath. Because I legitimately feared for myself and everyone else since they indiscriminately went after us. That was posted along with an article about the Amnesty International flagging the U.S. for not respecting the right to protest. Usually when Amnesty International says something, they really mean it. Some other folks who've been flagged for not respecting the right to protest are people like Saddam Hussein, Kim Jong-un, some other folks like that. I briefly wanted to go to Tom Wolfe's press conference, and
good afternoon.
If
we could start with just a moment of silence in honor of George Floyd. His memorial service just ended in Minneapolis.
And they're having a moment of silence in solidarity with the George Floyd protest. Thank you. Interestingly, while this buffers, Philadelphia's City Council also had a moment of silence to start their deliberations today. And the deliberations in that the folks that were participating in person took a knee in solidarity with George Floyd.
Listening. All of us here in Harrisburg need to show that people are being heard. So today, I'm taking steps to address concerns about long-standing violence and oppression against Pennsylvanians of color. First, I'm directing the MPOETC, the state police, and all other training academies for law enforcement to review their training curricula. This will include a thorough review and revision of use of force training. We will also develop standardized testing and best practices for verbal de-escalation techniques, trauma-centered approaches, mental health first aid, and implicit bias training. This is based on recommendations from the 21st Century Report on Policing that was created under the guidance of President Barack Obama and co-chaired by Commissioner Ramsey, formerly Commissioner of Police in Philadelphia. This effort will commence immediately. Second, we're going to help municipalities, all of us are going to help municipalities develop citizen police advisory boards. The Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency will develop a program that provides technical assistance to municipalities to create a citizens police advisory board to address police action that leads to injury or death. We will work with cities and towns to create organizations that provide transparency and independence.
I'm just going to pause that for a second to address something that he just said. Speaking of community advisory boards. Philadelphia has long had a community advisory board. It's woefully underfunded, and the mayor's proposed budget calls for defunding it further while increasing the police budget. Some cities, like Los Angeles, also have a police advisory board, a community police advisory board, and they solve the problem of equitable funding by making it linked to police funding, making it a percentage of the police funding. But right now, Mayor Kenney is proposing getting rid of one of the layers of protection that Governor Wolf is proposing to increase.
Independent accountability. Third, we need to do the same on the state level. I'm going to create a Pennsylvania State Law Enforcement Advisory Commission that will review incidents of misconduct within law enforcement agencies under my jurisdiction and make recommendations to me and the heads of those agencies on how we can improve public interactions and prevent misconduct, oppression, and violence targeted at Black and brown communities. Fourth, we'll be creating a Deputy Inspector General within the Office of Inspector General. The Deputy Inspector General will be charged with four things: deterring, second, detecting, third, preventing, and fourth, eradicating fraud, waste, misconduct, and abuse among law enforcement agencies under my jurisdiction. And I encourage local jurisdictions to establish similar protocols. I had a conversation yesterday with Charles Ramsey, again, Commissioner Ramsey, who chairs the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. And as I said before, he was the co-chair of the Commission on 21st Century Policing. Our law enforcement agencies have implemented many of that commission's recommendations across Pennsylvania. But we're going to speed up the process so our law enforcement agencies have a better sense of community relations, and better record of community relations, and a better understanding of the people they serve. Fifth, we will task the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency to create a racial and ethnic disparities subcommittee under the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee. This subcommittee will be tasked with reviewing criminal justice data at all decision points to develop a comprehensive strategy for policy changes, educational programs, funding, and technical assistance programs at the state and local levels. On Tuesday, members of the Police Reform Working Group, which includes state and local elected officials, the Chief Defender of the Defender Association of Philadelphia, as well as several attorneys, put forward some thoughtful proposals calling for the reform of community police relationships at every level. This is a culmination of years of work by members of the General Assembly and the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, which they've previously put forth legislation in this space. I agree with them that we need to explore greater oversight of law enforcement to root out misconduct and abuse. I'm going to work with them to implement their recommendations and pass legislation to address these inequities. We've already had some success. As you recall, we've implemented a fair funding formula, provided more funding to our schools. Still, we have a long way to go before we can make all of our schools truly equal, a long way. We've made our criminal justice system fairer by passing clean slate into law, by strengthening support for county probation programs, by fixing inadequate sentencing guidelines, and by reforming the post-trial criminal justice system. We've addressed criminal justice reform on a bipartisan basis, and that's what we'll need to do to fix these long-standing inequities. I'm going to point out also that we've reduced our prison population. As of today, from January of 2015 today, there are 6,700 fewer people incarcerated in Pennsylvania state correctional institutions. 80% of them, 80% of that reduction, 6,700 people, are non-white. As we go forward, we need to address the looming systemic failings that have created this situation. This is not about the police. This is about the broad system of inequities that has sustained racism in the United States and Pennsylvania for too many centuries. These fights are real, but they don't have an endpoint. We have to keep going to make sure our Commonwealth is more fair and more equal for everyone. That is something that every one of us, every single Pennsylvanian, all 13 million of us, share a vested self-interest in.
I'm just going to pause him there. He's getting off onto the campaigning section of his speech. I don't personally feel the need to listen to a campaign as we're fighting for the simple right to continue to live. Interestingly, today it was announced that the Minneapolis City Council, several of the Minneapolis City Council members are considering disbanding the police force. If you've been tuned into Minneapolis public safety scene, you know for years Reclaim the Block and other grassroots community groups have been asking the city to do one thing: stop investing in police. Budget meeting after budget meeting, they turn out with their petitions and signs demanding city put less money into its police department and more money into programs that stop crimes from happening in the first place, like affordable housing, addiction counseling, violence prevention programs. By the way, to all the NIMBY neighbors I have, the South Philly Safe Injection site is one of those very successful programs that would prevent violence and prevent crime. We need intervention measures. We need crime deterrent methods other than a militarized police force. Continuing further along those lines, I just wanted to read from the WHYY coverage about some of the things that they noted in Jim Kenney's proposed budget. The proposed budget funnels nearly $23 million in new funds to law enforcement. You'll see a lot of us saying numbers like 19 million. This is a more accurate representation of the total. 23 million is a more accurate representation of the total funding that the mayor is trying to funnel towards law enforcement. 19 million is just the direct addition that he's looking for. The budget is so perplexing because they're trying to arrest their way out of crime, said Devin Washington, an organizer with Philadelphia Black Lives Matter. When you look at all the social services that provide the smallest blanket of relief, Mayor Kenney cut them all. Under the mayor's revised municipal spending proposal, which must still be approved by City Council, the Philadelphia Police Department will be able to raise salaries and hire new staff. I, for one, don't think that any of the folks out on the street deserve an increased salary for the abysmal job that they did through the first. At the same time, the city is proposing to slash 18% of funding for the Police Advisory Commission. That's what I was talking about before. Its main civilian oversight entity. Now, the Police Advisory Commission is notorious for not doing much, but consider that they have only enough money to have a total of 8 employees, and they're going to have to cut it to 5. WHYY and Billy Penn review of budget documents found, and the city's anti-violence efforts would also shrink by 21%, a $2.5 million reduction that would be felt across several programs that serve at-risk youth and their families. These are programs like after-school activities, food, basic services, basic human services. The administration's amended budget slashes $370 million from a variety of departments, with cuts to everything from housing programs to a proposed street sweeping expansion. In fact, the budget actually proposes cutting street sweeping entirely in some places. Only fire and police saw increases. Kenny has now proposed a $790 million operating budget for police. That increase includes not just $14 million in new spending Kenny outlined in a revised budget, but also an earlier $5.2 million increase in the mayor had sought in his first draft just 1 month prior. So that's the total of $19 million. It's really 19.2, but hey, when we're talking these big numbers, why don't we just round down? I just can't. I have no problem with giving the fire department more money. They deserve it. They need it. They need new equipment. They need modern training. The issues around fighting fire are always changing. Nobody's saying that the fire department shouldn't get more money. At least nobody that I know of. Interesting. Apparently, we're getting wind of rumors of a white supremacist rally at Frankfurt and Kottman tomorrow. I guess we'll see. So this $370 million shortfall, when you start talking about percentages, and Mayor Kenny has been very careful to avoid talking about it as percentages while at the same time playing both sides of the middle by saying he's taking a little bit from everywhere. He seems to be very carefully not taking a little bit from everywhere and specifically supporting programs that he wants to support, supporting programs that give the city more power over its citizens and stop servicing them as human beings, considering them only cattle. Separately, the administration outlined more than $11 million increase to bring the PPD's capital budget, which funds building projects and infrastructure costs, up to $62 million per year. This includes another $3.7 million in new funds from the city. So instead of cutting from everywhere, he seems to have dumped a lot of money into the PPD and cut from everywhere else. If approved by the Council of Police Advisory Commission's annual budget would drop from $668,000. That's like a drop in the bucket. That's not even millions. To $540,000, losing $100,000, $120,000. So that would make them fire 2 people. Youth programs would be especially hard hit. All told, under the proposed plan, just $9.5 million is allocated to anti-violence initiatives, an investment equal to just 1.2% of the hundreds of millions earmarked for policing. Cuts to the Office of Violence Prevention, which operates out of the Managing Director's office, will hit young people particularly hard. They include a 50% reduction to a $1 million annual community grant fund, the elimination of 2 staff positions, and the office's mentorship program for youth on probation. So we're going to take youth on probation, release them out to the street, and not provide them with guidance or good counsel. Officials said youth who were receiving guidance through that program would be referred to the Juvenile and Adult Probation and Parole Board. They're not equipped to handle youth. Kenny's budget also calls for the elimination of Youth Violence Reduction Partnership, a separate intervention program that provides at-risk youth and their parents with drug treatment, job readiness services, and mental health counseling. Much of the proposed funding increase for the department will go towards officers' salaries. Blindsided by the coronavirus pandemic, the Kenny administration rushed a 1-year contract extension with the city's police union that included a 2.5% raise for all officers. Dunn, the mayoral spokesperson, defended the budget priorities, saying they were informed by experiences in the Great Recession of 2008 to 2009 when the city last faced a major budget crunch. One such lesson was that funding cuts for essential services like public safety take years to recover from. For this reason, we chose not to reduce the budget of the Philadelphia Police Department or to implement any police layoffs. Not only did they not choose to reduce the funding, they chose to increase it. I'd say when you're facing a multi-billion-dollar budget shortfall, it's probably a good time to freeze the budget of the Philadelphia Police Department. Let's follow along here just a little bit longer. Some of the new funding would help pay for efforts to improve police accountability as well, Dunn said, such as anti-racist training for officers, $300,000. So that's one weekend course for about 100 people. And additional body cameras, $758,000. But the funding bump would also cover other costs like 20 new Intelligence Bureau positions and Traffic Safety Officer program launched by Council President Darrell Clark. Yeah. It's not an anti-violence program. It's not a pro-people budget. It's not a good idea. And you need to talk to your representatives on city council, write the mayor's office, call the mayor's office, talk to your state reps, see what influence they have, because our state reps are actually pretty well positioned in the DNC. So speaking with your state reps can have efforts come back down the line to more local players. I see here somebody posting the word terrifying to a post that I made of the GameStop vigilantes. I'll just put that up on screen for you all for a second. That's fine. Yeah, the GameStop vigilantes, ladies and gentlemen, they're super duper important to let roam the street, apparently, because we can't get the PPD to stop people from mounting buildings with what looks like a 22 and a couple of AR-15s. I'm also wanting to cover the topic of private police. Some folks have been noticing people dressed in all black with weapons and badges that say private police on them. Private police are not police. They are, and we'll classify them in enhanced security personnel. They are hired by private people. I have reports that the city hires them for something. I've never seen them be hired by the city. I don't think our city has a budget mechanism to hire private police forces. Private police were hired by local groups in both North Philly and South Philly. In the Italian market, group hired a few private police to protect the area. And in North Philly, apparently, there was a similar group, similar like a development council or what have you, that also hired private police to protect businesses in the area. To be quite honest, all of this vigilantism, private policing, all of it was completely unnecessary. Nobody was looting local businesses, businesses owned by local people. I don't know if any of you watched my video from when I took a walk about town, but it was very clear that most of the vandalism and looting was geared towards non-local businesses, businesses owned by corporations. Nobody's coming into your neighborhood to exact their looting needs against you. In addition to defunding the police, I just wanted to make clear again, I'm supporting funding the arts. There are two organizations that are proposed in the proposed budget that are being fully cut. Citizen action groups have been calling and emailing and writing their city council representatives over the last couple of days, and it's been a successful effort. People inside city council who talk to those of us outside city council who are organizing these kinds of things, because there is a communication bridge that way, say that their staffers are overwhelmed with the number of calls. So we need to keep overwhelming them. We need to keep overwhelming them with calls, with emails, with faxes, whatever method you choose to contact your city council reps. It's important to keep contacting them. They're currently considering their proposals for the budget. Their proposals for the budget will define the actual final budget that goes through. In an effort to provide as much information as we can, we've organized a digital rally for Philly Arts under the hashtag Save Philly Arts and Culture. You can go to no20.art to sign up for the rally. You will be asked to rally from home, join us live, or support us in any number of other ways, including rebroadcasting our rally to other people. This digital rally for Philly Arts will be on the 8th and 9th of June. So Monday and Tuesday, it's coming up shortly. The digital rally for the arts is coming up shortly because public testimony for about the budget and about the arts budget will be on Tuesday in the afternoon, I believe beginning at 3 p.m. And that testimony is completely full. Enough people signed up for that public testimony phase that they have no more spaces. And we need to make our voices heard for City Council. I hope to make this digital rally a resource for everybody trying to contact City Council and make it so that you have a cohesive message that you can give to your City Council members. With that, I'm just going to sign off here. I really appreciate everybody's time and attention. I know there are still rallies going on. It is 5:21 p.m. here on the East Coast. The protests that I've seen that are organized call for rallying till at least 6 p.m. And I just don't see any public coverage of it like we usually have had. So there's no helicopter camera coverage. There seems to be very little local on-the-ground coverage as well. If I catch anything, I will go live again. If anybody gets in touch and wants to restream something because they feel unsafe or just because they want to show folks out here what's actually going on in the city, I will go live anytime you guys need me to. But with that, I thank you. I hope you all have a relatively safe night. And I appreciate your time and attention. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. Keep 6 feet distance from people who aren't in your household. There's still a bit of a virus